The science ship Velmara's Hope drifted through the black nothing of a region of space that had no name on any star chart. It was a large ship, built by the Torani Union, a group of 6 alien species who had banded together many years ago to explore the galaxy in peace. The ship was meant for research, not danger. Its halls were filled with soft blue light, and its crew wore simple gray uniforms with the mark of the Union on their chests. 3 circles joined together, meaning unity. Captain Sela Orun stood on the bridge, looking out at the stars. She was a Dovahkiin, a species that looked mostly like tall, thin humanoids with pale green skin and large black eyes that could see in the dark. She had led this ship for 11 years, and in all that time, she had never seen a storm like the one that had just hit them. "Report," she said, her voice calm but tired. Her first officer, a Yultharian named Bren Kolo, turned from his console. Yultharians were short and stocky, with rough gray skin like stone, and they were known across the galaxy for being careful and slow to panic. But even Bren's voice shook a little now. "Captain, the drive core took heavy damage. We flew straight into a gravity storm we did not detect. Our sensors did not see it coming, because it was hidden behind a dead star. The jump engine is destroyed. We cannot use faster-than-light travel anymore." Sela closed her eyes for a moment. And normal engines? Damaged but working. At sublight speed, it would take us almost 40 years to reach the nearest Union outpost. The bridge went quiet. 40 years. No one on this ship would live to see home again if that was true. "What about communications?" Sela asked. "The long-range transmitter is broken," said Bren. "We can only send a short-range distress signal, and even that will take time to reach anyone, because we are very far from any trade routes. We are in what the old maps call the empty reach. No ships come here. No one lives here. We were only here because of the research mission." Sela turned to look at the main screen, where a slowly spinning image of their ship showed the damage in red. Half of the ship's power systems were failing. The reactor was unstable, and worse than any of that, life support was already weakening. "How long do we have?" she asked quietly. The ship's engineer, a small furry being named Chit Voss from the species called the Irimi, answered from his station. The Irimi were known for being brilliant with machines, small in size but quick in mind. His voice was high and fast. "Life support can hold for maybe 60 days if we ration power carefully. After that, the air recyclers will fail one by one. We have 212 people on this ship, Captain. 60 days is not long enough for anyone to reach us, even if help was already on its way, which it is not." Sela felt a heavy weight settle in her chest. 212 people. Scientists, engineers, young cadets who had joined this mission because they loved the stars. Families waiting back home. All of them now trapped, drifting in the darkest, emptiest part of known space, with a slowly dying ship around them. "Send the distress signal," she ordered. "Send it on every frequency we have. Someone has to hear it." The distress signal went out into the void, a small, weak cry for help traveling at the speed of light through endless empty space. It carried the ship's coordinates, its condition, and a simple message: "We are stranded. We are dying. Please help us." For 3 days, there was no answer. The crew worked hard to save power, turning off lights in unused sections of the ship, shutting down non-essential systems, even lowering the temperature in the living quarters to save energy. Children on the ship, for some families had brought their children on this long research voyage, began to ask their parents why it was getting cold and why the grown-ups looked so worried. On the 4th day, a signal came back. It was not from a rescue ship. It was from the Torani Union Central Command, far away, relayed through a series of listening posts that had picked up the very edge of their distress call. Captain Sela read the message on her screen, and her hope, which had been small but alive, began to shrink. The message said that the Union Council had reviewed their situation. It said that sending a rescue fleet to the empty reach would take at least 8 months of travel time, even with the fastest ships available, because most Union warships were needed elsewhere, guarding trade routes and dealing with pirate activity near the Kessa Belt. It said that the Council was deeply sorry for their situation, but that resources were limited, and a rescue mission of that distance and cost would need to be approved by a vote of all 6 species representatives, which could take weeks by itself. 8 months. Weeks just to vote, and they had 60 days of air. Brancolo read the message over her shoulder and made a low sound of anger, deep in his rocky throat. "They are not coming," he said. "They are going to let us die out here, because it costs too much to save us." "We do not know that yet," Sella said, though her voice did not sound sure. "Captain," said Chit Voss from his station, "I have run the numbers again and again. Even if the vote happens fast, even if a ship leaves tomorrow, it cannot reach us before our air runs out. Unless something changes, we are already dead. We just have not stopped breathing yet." No one on the bridge said anything for a long moment. Outside the windows, the stars did not care. They simply burned, cold and distant, as they always had. Over the next days, the crew tried everything they could think of. Chit Voss and his engineering team worked almost without sleep, trying to repair the jump drive, but the damage was too severe. Key parts of the drive had been destroyed completely, not just broken, and there were no replacement parts on the ship. They tried to boost the range of their transmitter using spare parts from other systems, hoping to reach farther into space, hoping some passing ship, any ship, might hear them. Captain Sella spent her nights walking through the ship, something she had not done much before, always so busy with reports and meetings. Now she walked the halls and saw the fear in her crew's eyes, saw parents holding their children a little tighter, saw the young cadets trying to be brave, pretending everything would be fine. She stopped by the observation deck one night, what counted as night, since the ship still ran on an artificial day cycle to keep everyone's minds steady, and found a young Dovahkiin girl named Ilya sitting alone by the window, looking out at the stars. "Can't sleep?" Sella asked, sitting down beside her. Ilya shook her head. She was maybe 12 years old, the daughter of one of the ship's biologists. "My mother says we sent a message asking for help. Is someone coming?" Sella thought about lying, about saying something comforting and simple, the way adults sometimes do for children. But something in the girl's serious black eyes made her choose honesty instead. "We sent the message," Sella said. "We do not know yet if anyone will answer in time, but we are not going to stop trying, and we are not going to stop hoping." Ilya nodded slowly, as if that answer, though not perfect, was enough for now. "My teacher told us once that there are creatures out there called humans," she said. "She said they are strange. Not part of the Union, she said they fly very fast and take a lot of risks, and that other species think they are reckless. Is that true?" Sella smiled a little, despite everything. "I have heard stories like that too. Humans are not part of the Turani Union. Their space is very far from here, on the other side of the old trade lanes. I have never met one myself, but I have heard their ships are fast, and their captains do not always wait for permission before they act." "Do you think a human ship could hear our signal?" "I do not know," Sella admitted. "But out here, in the empty reach, I suppose anything could be listening." She did not tell the girl the truth, that human space was even farther from the empty reach than the nearest Union outpost, and that the chance of a human ship simply passing by was almost impossible to imagine. She let the girl keep her small hope, because in that moment, hope was the only thing worth having. Days passed. The Union Council's vote on the rescue mission was delayed once, then delayed again, as different species representatives argued about cost and risk, and whose resources should be used. Reports came in that some representatives believed sending a large warship so far, through unclaimed space, might provoke unknown threats, and that the mission was not worth the danger to Union assets. Others argued that letting 212 people die was worse than any risk. But arguments did not save air. Arguments did not fix engines. On the Velmara's Hope, the mood grew darker with each passing day. Chit Voss reported that despite all rationing, life support would now only last 40 more days, because 2 of the air recyclers had failed faster than expected, damaged in the original storm more than anyone had realized. 40 days. Captain Sella called a meeting of her senior officers in the command room, a small room behind the bridge with a round table and a large star map on the wall. Brancolo sat heavily in his chair, his stone-like face carved with worry. Chit Voss looked exhausted, his fur matted from long hours in the engine room. The ship's doctor, a tall and graceful being called Nyeth Sar from a species that communicated partly through soft color changes on her skin, sat quietly, her skin a dim, sad blue. "We have 40 days, Sela said. "The Union has told us help may come in 8 months, if it comes at all. We cannot wait for a rescue that will not arrive in time. We need another plan." "There is no other plan," Bren said bluntly. "We cannot fix the jump drive. We cannot reach anywhere at sublight speed before the air runs out. We have sent our signal as far and as wide as our equipment allows. All we can do now is wait, and hope someone hears us, or accept that we will not." "I refuse to accept that," Sela said sharply. "There are 212 lives on this ship, children, families. We will keep working. We will keep sending the signal. We will keep looking for any way to survive, until the very last breath of air runs out. Is that understood?" The room was silent, but slowly, one by one, her officers nodded. Even Bren, who had sounded so hopeless a moment before, straightened in his chair and said, "Understood, Captain." The meeting ended, and the crew went back to their stations, back to their small, quiet fight against the dark and the cold and the silence of the empty reach. The distress signal kept broadcasting, over and over, a small voice crying out into the vastness of space, not knowing if anyone at all would ever hear it. They did not know that, many light years away, a lone ship was already changing course. Far from the empty reach, on the edge of human-controlled space, the warship UES Kestrel was on a routine patrol. US stood for United Earthship, and the Kestrel was a mid-sized vessel, fast and heavily armed, built more for speed and toughness than for comfort. It was not the biggest ship in the human fleet, nor the strongest, but it had a good crew and a captain who was known for making quick decisions. Captain James Okoro sat in his chair on the bridge, one leg crossed over the other, reading a report on his tablet about fuel efficiency. He was a broad-shouldered man in his 40s, with short gray hair and a calm face that rarely showed much emotion, though his eyes were always sharp and watching. He had commanded the Kestrel for 6 years, longer than most captains kept a single ship, because his crew requested to stay with him again and again. "Anything interesting today, Lieutenant Park?" he asked, not looking up from his tablet. At the communications station, Lieutenant Mira Park adjusted her headset. She was young, only 26, but she had the fastest hands on the ship when it came to catching signals other operators missed. "Just static so far, Captain. We're picking up old echoes from a dead system nearby. Nothing." She stopped talking. Her fingers moved quickly across her console, adjusting frequencies. "Captain, hold on. I'm getting something. It's faint. Really faint. Could be nothing, but—" "Put it through," Okoro said, sitting up straighter. A crackling, broken signal filled the bridge speakers. Most of it was noise, but every few seconds, a clearer piece came through. Numbers, coordinates, and a single repeated phrase in a language the ship's computer struggled to translate at first, then finally rendered into standard English. "Stranded. Life support failing. 212 souls aboard. Please, someone, help us." The bridge went quiet except for the low hum of machines. "Computer, translate the rest and give me the source," Okoro said. The ship's AI, a calm female voice named Arya, answered at once. "Signal identified as originating from a Torani Union science vessel. Registry Velmara's Hope. Coordinates place the ship deep within an unclaimed region known on old star charts as the Empty Reach, approximately 310 light-years from our current position. Signal is weak and degraded, suggesting long-range transmission difficulties or damaged equipment. Estimated signal age, 4 days." 310 light-years, muttered Ensign Wallace, the ship's navigator, a lanky young man with a habit of chewing the end of his pen. "That's outside Union territory. Outside our territory. Outside pretty much everyone's territory. That's deep in nowhere space." "Torani Union," said Okoro slowly. "We've had some trade contact with them, but they're not allies. Not enemies either. Just distant." Lieutenant Park spoke up. "Captain, the message mentions 212 people aboard, including— I'm still decoding this part. It sounds like it includes families. Civilians. Some kind of research or exploration ship, not military." Okoro set down his tablet completely now, giving the situation his full attention. How long ago did they send this? 4 days, Captain, based on transmission decay, Arya answered. Given the weakening signal strength and the fact that this is likely one of many attempts, it's probable their situation is worsening. And the bridge crew looked at their captain, waiting. 310 light-years was a long way. It was outside their patrol zone. It was outside human territory entirely. Helping would mean flying deep into unknown space, alone, with no support, no backup, and no guarantee of what they might find when they got there. Danger, pirates, unknown hazards, or nothing at all but a graveyard of a ship that they arrived at too late. Set a course for those coordinates, Okoro said. Best possible speed. There was a small pause, not hesitation from disagreement, but the natural pause of a crew making sure they heard their captain correctly. Captain, said his first officer, Commander Diaz, a sturdy woman with dark hair pulled back tightly. That's well outside our authorized patrol range. Command hasn't approved a mission like this. Regulations say, Commander, Okoro interrupted gently, there are 200 people out there running out of air, and children among them. I'll deal with the regulations and the paperwork after we save them, not before. Send a message to Fleet Command, informing them of our situation and our decision. We are not waiting for permission when people are dying. Set the course, Wallace. Yes, sir, said Wallace, already turning to his console, fingers moving fast. Commander Diaz allowed herself a small smile, the kind of smile she always had when her captain proved, once again, exactly why she had chosen to serve under him. Course laid in, Captain. Estimated travel time at maximum safe speed, 11 days. 11 days, Okoro repeated, doing the math in his head. If the distress signal was 4 days old already, and it would take 11 more days to arrive, that ship would have been stranded for 15 days by the time the Kestrel reached them. He did not know how much time they had left. He only knew he had to try. Engineering. This is the captain, he said into the ship comm. I need every bit of speed you can safely give me. We have people counting on us. From somewhere deep in the ship, the chief engineer's gruff voice answered. Understood, Captain. We'll push her hard. The Kestrel turned in space, its engines flaring bright as it changed course, leaving its assigned patrol route behind, and heading out into the unclaimed dark toward the empty reach. Word of the decision spread quickly through the ship, as it always did. In the mess hall, crew members talked quietly over their meals about the mission. 300 light-years. For aliens we've never even traded with directly, said one young crewman, a supply technician named Ortiz, shaking his head, not in anger, but in a kind of wonder. Captain didn't even blink. That's the captain for you, said an older crew member, a woman named Chief Petty Officer Grant, who had served with Okoro for 4 years. I remember back during the Cyclone Station disaster, he flew us straight into a burning station without waiting for backup, because people were trapped inside. Half of them were strangers we'd never met before that day. He got them all out. You think we'll make it in time? Ortiz asked. Grant shrugged, though her eyes were steady. Don't know, but I know we're going to try everything we've got. That's what we do. Meanwhile, on the bridge, Commander Diaz reviewed the message that had been sent to Fleet Command, explaining their change of course and the reason behind it. She expected, honestly, that there might be some pushback, some questioning of the decision to divert a warship so far from its post, based on an alien distress call. But hours later, when a response finally came through, it was short and simple. Decision approved after the fact. Godspeed, Kestrel. Bring them home. Diaz read the message twice, then walked it over to Okoro's chair and showed it to him without a word. He read it, nodded once, and handed the tablet back. Good, he said simply. Now let's make sure we get there in time to matter. 11 days is a long time to travel through empty space, not knowing exactly what you will find when you arrive, or if you will arrive too late. The crew of the Kestrel used every one of those days well. Medical teams prepared for the possibility of treating unfamiliar alien biology, studying whatever old records existed on Turani Union physiology from past diplomatic exchanges. Engineering crews checked and rechecked the ship's systems, making sure everything that could go wrong would not. Captain Okoro barely left the bridge during those 11 days, sleeping only in short bursts in the chair beside his command station, always ready to be woken the moment anything changed. Lieutenant Park kept trying to reach the stranded ship directly, sending messages ahead of them, hoping the Velmara's Hope might somehow catch a reply and know that help was finally coming. On the 8th day, something remarkable happened. A faint response came back, garbled, weak, barely more than fragments of sound, but Park's trained ears caught enough to be certain. "Captain, I think they heard us. I caught pieces of a reply, something like received. Still holding, thank you, Captain, they're still alive." A quiet cheer went up across the bridge, the kind of relief that comes when hope, which had been carried carefully and quietly for days, is finally allowed to show itself. Okoro allowed himself a small, tired smile. "Send back a message. Tell them we are 3 days out. Tell them to hold on just a little longer." "Yes, sir," Park said, already typing. 3 more days. The Kestrel pushed harder through the dark, its engines burning steady and true, carrying 200 human souls across the vastness of space to answer the call of 200 strangers they had never met, from a world they had never seen, simply because those strangers needed help, and the Kestrel, and its captain, had never once considered turning away. On the Velmara's Hope, hope itself was becoming a fragile thing. 31 days had passed since the storm had crippled their ship. Life support was failing faster than Chitvoss's earlier calculations had predicted. 2 more air recyclers had broken down, and the crew had been forced to seal off entire sections of the ship, gathering everyone into the central living areas to save power and air. Captain Sela Orun walked through the crowded halls, where families now slept together in shared quarters, where the youngest children were kept calm with quiet games and old stories, though many of the adults had stopped pretending everything would be fine. The air itself felt heavier now, thinner, though the ship's instruments said the oxygen levels were still just barely within safe limits. Then, 8 days ago, something had happened that changed everything. A reply had come through their damaged long-range receiver, not from the Union, not from Central Command, but from a ship identifying itself as human. The message had been short, broken by static, but the meaning was clear. "We received your distress call. We are coming. Hold on." At first, some of the crew had not believed it. Rumors and old stories about humans were strange. Some said they were reckless, some said they were dangerous, some said they simply did not exist beyond a handful of trade agreements far from Union space. But Captain Sela had held onto that message like a lifeline, and when a second message came, promising they were only 3 days away, hope had spread through the ship like warmth returning to cold hands. Now, standing on the bridge, Sela watched the main screen with her hands clasped tightly behind her back, waiting. "Any sign of them?" she asked. "Not yet, Captain," said Bren Kolo, standing at the sensor station. "But if their message was accurate, they should be arriving." The ship's proximity alarm chimed softly. "Contact," Bren said suddenly, his rocky face lighting up with something close to disbelief. "Long-range sensors are picking up an engine signature. It's approaching fast. Captain, it matches no Union ship design in our database." "On screen," Sela ordered. The main view screen shifted, showing a tiny point of light against the endless black, growing larger and clearer with each passing second. Slowly, the shape of a ship became visible, sleek, gray, and dark blue, bristling with weapon emplacements along its hull, its design entirely unlike anything built by the Turani Union. It was smaller than the Velmara's Hope, but it moved with a kind of sharp, confident grace, like a hunting bird cutting through open sky. "That is a warship," Bren said quietly. "A real warship. It came all this way, alone, into unclaimed space, for us." On the bridge of the human ship, Captain Okoro leaned forward in his chair as the Velmara's Hope came into view on his own screen. A large, boxy vessel, clearly built for research rather than combat, its hull scarred and darkened in places from the storm damage it had suffered. "There she is," Okoro said. "Arya, hail them." "Opening channel, Captain." A moment later, the alien captain's voice came through the speakers, translated by the ship's systems into clear standard English, though something in the tone still carried the weight of pure, overwhelming relief. This is Captain Sela Orun, of the Torani Union science vessel, Velmara's Hope. Unidentified ship. Please confirm. Are you the humans who answered our call? Okoro straightened in his chair. This is Captain James Okoro, commanding the UES Kestrel, United Earth Space Forces. Yes, Captain. We received your signal, and we came as fast as we could. I'm sorry it took 11 days. There was a pause on the other end of the channel, filled with a kind of stunned silence. Then Sela's voice returned, quieter, thick with emotion she did not try to hide. 11 days. You traveled 300 light-years, alone, into space that does not belong to your people, to answer a call from strangers you had never met. You needed help, Okoro said simply. That was enough reason. On the bridge of the Velmara's Hope, several crew members exchanged glances, some in disbelief, some blinking back tears they had been holding for weeks. Sela closed her eyes for a moment, steadying herself, before speaking again. Captain Okoro, I do not know how to properly thank you. But I must warn you, our situation is worse than our earlier messages may have suggested. Life support is failing rapidly. We have perhaps 10 days of breathable air remaining, if we are careful. Our jump drive is destroyed beyond repair, and our sublight engines alone cannot carry us to safety in time. Okoro's expression did not change, but his mind was already working through the problem. Understood, Captain. How many people do you have aboard? 212, Sela answered, including children. Commander Diaz, standing near Okoro's chair, did a quick calculation in her head and felt her stomach tighten. The Kestrel was a mid-sized warship, built to carry a crew of perhaps 150 at most, with limited extra life support capacity for emergencies. Taking on 212 additional people would push every system on the ship past its normal limits. Captain, Diaz said quietly, leaning toward Okoro, our life support wasn't built for that many extra bodies. We'd be stretching everything, air, water, food, to the edge, maybe past it, especially on a journey home that could take just as long as it took us to get here. Okoro nodded slowly, understanding the risk completely. Then he looked back at the screen, where Captain Sela waited, her large black eyes fixed on him with a kind of desperate hope she was trying hard to hide. We're not leaving anyone behind, Okoro said, loud enough for his whole bridge crew to hear, and for the alien ship to hear as well. Commander Diaz, work with engineering. Figure out how to stretch our systems. We'll ration if we have to. We'll sleep in shifts if we have to. But every single person on that ship is coming home with us. Diaz hesitated only a second before nodding firmly. Yes, Captain. I'll get it done. On the Velmara's Hope, Sela felt something break loose in her chest. Not despair this time, but relief so strong it was almost painful. Captain Okoro, she said, her voice unsteady. I do not have words strong enough to thank you and your crew for this. You do not know us. You have no reason to risk so much for our sake. Where I come from, Captain Orun, Okoro said, that's exactly the kind of reason that matters most. Now, let's get your people somewhere safe. We don't have much time to waste. The rescue operation began at once. The Kestrel moved carefully alongside the crippled Velmara's Hope, extending docking clamps and pressurized connection tubes between the two very different ships. It was not a simple task. The alien vessel's docking systems were built to a different technical standard than the human ships, and it took hours of careful coordination between Chit Voss's engineering team and the Kestrel's own engineers to create a safe, sealed connection between the two hulls. While the technical teams worked, Captain Sela and Captain Okoro met in person for the first time, standing at the newly connected airlock as the first pressure checks were completed. Sela was taller than Okoro by almost a head, her pale green skin and large dark eyes striking against the plain gray of her uniform. Okoro extended his hand, a human gesture of greeting, and after a brief pause, Sela copied the motion, gripping his hand carefully. Thank you, she said again, simply, because there did not seem to be any better words. You're welcome, Okoro replied. Let's get your people moving. Time is still against us. The evacuation began in careful, organized waves. Families were guided first, mothers and fathers carrying sleepy children through the connecting tubes into the unfamiliar halls of the human warship, where human crew members greeted them with warm smiles and careful, gentle hands, doing their best to make frightened strangers feel welcome. Elderly crew members were helped along by young cadets. The ship's few injured, hurt during the original storm, and never given full medical treatment because of failing systems, were carried carefully on stretchers to the Kestrel's medical bay, where human doctors, working alongside Nyath Sar, the alien ship's own physician, began treating them at once. It was slow, careful work, made more difficult by the 212 people who all needed somewhere safe to go, all needed food and water and rest, on a ship that had never been designed to hold so many. But no one complained. No one hesitated. The human crew worked without stopping, some going hours without rest themselves, determined to see every single person brought safely aboard. By the time the last of the alien crew crossed through the connecting tubes, Captain Sella herself, walking last, making sure everyone else had gone before her, the Kestrel was full nearly beyond capacity, its halls crowded with strangers from another world, all of them alive, all of them safe, at least for now. But the danger was not over yet. As the final docking clamps disengaged, and the two ships prepared to separate, sensors on the Kestrel picked up something new. A series of unknown energy readings, growing stronger, approaching fast from deeper within the empty reach. Something else was out there, and it was coming toward them. Captain, I'm picking up multiple energy signatures approaching from bearing 047, said Lieutenant Park, her voice tight with focus. They weren't there 30 minutes ago. Whatever they are, they're moving fast, and there are at least 6 of them. Captain Okoro stood immediately from his chair. Aria, identify. Unable to match signatures to any known database, Captain, the ship's AI replied calmly. However, energy readings suggest armed vessels, smaller than the Kestrel, likely designed for speed and coordinated group attacks. Behavior pattern is consistent with pirate raider groups known to operate in unclaimed border regions. On the connected alien ship, still linked to the Kestrel by the final disengaging docking clamps, Captain Sella's voice came through the comm, alarmed. Captain Okoro, my sensors show the same readings. I know of these raiders. They are called the Kessin Swarm, scavengers who hunt crippled ships in unclaimed space, particularly ships too damaged to defend themselves. They must have detected our distress signal too, or picked up the energy trail of your engines. Okoro's jaw tightened. How dangerous are they? Individually, weak, Sella answered, but they hunt in packs, overwhelming their targets with numbers. A single crippled science vessel would have been an easy target for them. They likely assumed the same about us even now, not realizing help had already arrived. 6 raiders, Diaz said, reading the sensor data over Okoro's shoulder. Small, fast, lightly armed individually, but if they swarm us while we're still docked and vulnerable, then we won't stay vulnerable, Okoro said. He turned to the crew. Full disengage from the Velmara's Hope, now. Get some distance between us. Weapons crews to battle stations. Shields up the moment we're clear. Captain, Sella's voice came again, worried. Our ship still cannot move quickly, and we have no weapons of any real use in a fight like this. If those raiders reach us. They won't, Okoro said firmly. Captain Orun, keep your ship as steady as possible, and stay close behind us. We'll put the Kestrel between you and them. That's what we're here for. The final clamps released with a heavy metallic thud, and the two ships began to separate, the Kestrel moving with practiced speed to place its armored hull between the approaching threat and the wounded, defenseless research vessel. Within minutes, the raider ships came into visual range. 6 small, jagged vessels, their hulls patched together from scavenged parts of a dozen different ship designs, giving them an ugly, mismatched appearance, like predators built from the bones of past victims. They moved in a loose formation, clearly intending to surround their target. They're hailing us, Park reported. Let's hear it, Okoro said. A harsh, crackling voice filled the bridge, translated roughly by the ship's systems. Human ship, move aside. That crippled vessel behind you belongs to us. Its cargo, its parts, its people, all claimed under raider right. Interfere, and you die with them. Okoro's expression hardened, but his voice remained level when he responded. This is Captain James Okoro of the United Earthship Kestrel. That ship and everyone aboard it are under my protection. Turn away now, or we will treat your approach as a hostile act." There was a pause, followed by harsh, grating laughter over the channel. "One ship against 6? Brave words, human. Let's see how brave you are when we take you apart." "Captain," Park said quietly, "they're moving to attack formation." "Weapons, are we ready?" Okoro asked. "Weapons hot, shields at full power," came the reply from the tactical station, manned by a sharp-eyed officer named Lieutenant Reyes. "Say the word, Captain." "Protect that ship," Okoro said. "Whatever it takes. Fire when ready." The battle that followed was fast and brutal. The 6 raider ships broke formation and attacked from multiple directions at once, exactly as their reputation suggested, trying to overwhelm the Kestrel with speed and numbers rather than raw firepower. But Okoro's crew had trained for exactly this kind of fight, and the Kestrel, despite being outnumbered, was a far more capable warship than any of the raider vessels individually. 2 raiders coming in from portside, closing fast, Reyes called out. "Target them, full spread," Okoro ordered. The Kestrel's weapons fired in precise, controlled bursts, catching one raider ship directly and sending it spinning away, trailing smoke and debris, its weapons silenced. The second raider veered off sharply, avoiding the same fate, but losing its attack position. On the Velmara's Hope, Sela watched the battle unfold on her own screens, her hands gripping the edge of her command chair so tightly her knuckles paled. "They're fighting 6 ships to protect us," she whispered, more to herself than to anyone else. Alone. Bren Kolo stood beside her, watching just as intently. They could disengage, leave us to face this alone, save themselves the risk. Any other captain from any other species I have known might have considered it, at least for a moment. But they are not considering it, Sela said quietly. "Look at them. They are not just defending us. They are fighting like we are already their own people." Back on the Kestrel's bridge, the fight continued to rage. 2 more raider ships attempted a coordinated strike from above and below, trying to catch the human warship in a crossfire, but Okoro had already anticipated the move. "Roll 30 degrees, now," he ordered, and the pilot, a young officer named Ensign Chen, executed the maneuver perfectly, causing both raider ships to nearly collide with each other, as their attack angles suddenly missed their mark entirely. "Fire!" Okoro commanded, and the Kestrel's weapons found their targets, disabling one raider ship completely and forcing the other into a hasty retreat, its hull scorched and smoking. 3 raiders remained, and seeing their companions defeated so quickly, their aggressive formation began to break apart, hesitation creeping into their attack pattern. "They're pulling back, Captain," Park reported. "I think they're reconsidering this fight." "Hail them again," Okoro said. When the channel opened, Okoro's voice was steady and unwavering. "You've seen what happens when you attack this ship. Turn away now, and you keep whatever ships you have left. Continue this fight, and I promise you, none of you are leaving this system." There was a long pause. Then, without another word, the 3 remaining raider ships broke formation entirely and fled, jumping into faster-than-light travel and vanishing from sensors within seconds. A quiet cheer rose up across the Kestrel's bridge, quickly hushed as everyone returned their focus to their stations, checking for any remaining threats. But the danger, at least for now, had passed. "Damage report," Okoro said, finally allowing himself to relax slightly in his chair. "Shields held, Captain," Reyes reported. "Minor damage to the outer hull from a few grazing hits. Nothing critical. No injuries reported among the crew." "And the Velmara's Hope?" Okoro asked. "Undamaged, Captain," Park confirmed. "They stayed well behind us the entire fight, just as you asked." Okoro allowed himself a small breath of relief before opening the comm channel to the alien ship once more. "Captain Orun, are you and your people all right?" Sela's voice returned, filled with a mixture of relief and something that sounded almost like awe. "We are unharmed, Captain Okoro, thanks entirely to you and your crew. I watched your ship fight 6 vessels alone to protect us, without a single moment of hesitation. I do not know how to express what that means to me, to my crew, to everyone who is now safely aboard your ship, because you chose to stand between us and danger." "It's what we do, Captain," Okoro said simply. "Now, let's get your people home safe. That fight isn't over until everyone's somewhere secure. Set a course back toward Union space. We'll escort you as far as we can, and then we'll figure out getting everyone the rest of the way." "Captain Okoro," Sela said, her voice quieter now. "May I ask you something?" "Of course. Why? Why would your people risk so much? Your ship, your crew, your own lives. For strangers you owe nothing to. From a species you barely know." Okoro was quiet for a moment, considering the question seriously rather than answering quickly. "Where I come from, Captain," he finally said, "we believe that if you can help someone, and you don't, that says something about who you are. We've had hard times in our own history. Wars, disasters, moments when no one came to help us either. Maybe that's part of why, when we hear someone calling for help, we don't wait around asking whether it's worth the risk. We just go." On the other end of the channel, Sela found herself without words for a long moment, thinking of her own people, of the Union Council's slow votes and careful calculations of cost and risk, of the 8 months rescue timeline they had offered instead of urgency. She thought of how different this single human ship's answer had been. "Thank you, Captain Okoro," she finally said, "truly, for all of it." "You're welcome, Captain Orun," Okoro replied. "Now, let's get everyone home." The two ships, one small and swift, one large and battered, turned together and began the long journey back toward safety, leaving the dangers of the empty reach behind them. The journey back toward Union space took nearly 2 weeks, with the Kestrel carrying most of the Velmara's Hope's crew aboard, while a small skeleton team, led by Bren Kolo, remained on the crippled science vessel to keep its sublight engines running and guide it slowly along behind the human warship. It was not a comfortable journey. The Kestrel was crowded far beyond its normal limits, and every system aboard was stretched to handle the extra people, but no one complained, human or alien alike. There was too much gratitude in the air for complaints to find much room. Captain Sela spent much of the journey learning about her rescuers, walking the crowded halls of the human ship, talking with crew members whenever she found the time. She learned that humans were, in many ways, exactly as strange as the old stories described. Loud sometimes, quick to laugh, quick to argue too, but always, underneath it all, deeply loyal to each other and to anyone they decided to protect. One evening, sitting in the ship's mess hall with Captain Okoro, sharing a simple meal together, Sela finally asked the question that had been sitting in her mind since the rescue began. "Captain Okoro, may I ask, was there ever a moment, even briefly, when you considered not answering our call? The distance was great, the risk was real. Your own fleet command had not yet approved the mission when you changed course." Okoro thought about the question honestly before answering. "No," he said simply, "not once. The moment we heard your people needed help, there wasn't really a decision to make. It was just obvious what we had to do. Even though we are strangers, even though the Turani Union has never been an ally to your people, only a distant trading partner at best?" "Captain Orun," Okoro said, "out here, among the stars, there are more differences between species than anyone could ever count. Different bodies, different customs, different ways of thinking. But when someone is drowning, so to speak, you don't stop to check what language they speak before throwing them a rope. You just throw the rope. That's all this was." Sela considered his words carefully, then nodded slowly, something in her expression softening. "I think," she said, "that if more of the galaxy thought the way you do, Captain, there would be far less suffering in it." Okoro smiled slightly, a rare full smile from a man usually so calm and composed. "Maybe. Or maybe it's just that we've been on the other side of that kind of trouble before, and we remember how much it mattered when someone finally showed up. Either way, I'm just glad we made it in time." When the two ships finally reached the edge of Turani Union space, they were met by a small fleet of Union vessels, sent at last after the long-delayed council vote had finally been approved. Far too late to have made any real difference, arriving only now to escort the survivors the rest of the way home. Sela noted, with quiet irony, that the very fleet meant to rescue them arrived only after a single human warship had already done the job alone. The reunion at the Union's nearest major outpost, a large space station called Halvoran Reach, was filled with emotion. Families who had waited anxiously for news, fearing the worst after weeks of silence, now rushed forward to embrace loved ones they had feared they might never see again. Children ran across the docking bay into the arms of grandparents who had traveled far to be there. Tears were shed freely, by every species present, translated through no words at all, because grief, turned to joy, needs no translation. Captain Sella stood near the edge of the crowd, watching the reunions unfold, when Captain Okoro approached, his uniform slightly worn from the long journey, but his posture still straight and steady. "This is where we say goodbye, I suppose," Sella said, though there was clear reluctance in her voice. "For now," Okoro agreed, "though I have a feeling this won't be the last time our people cross paths." "I certainly hope not," Sella said. She paused, then continued, more formally this time. "Captain Okoro, on behalf of my crew, my people, and the families you have returned safely home today, I want to make you a promise. What you and your crew did, what your entire ship risked, will not be forgotten. I intend to make a full report to the Union Council, not just of our rescue, but of everything your people represent. Perhaps it is time the Union looked beyond its own borders and considered a stronger relationship with Earth." Okoro nodded respectfully. "I'd like that, Captain Orun. For what it's worth, I think my people would welcome it too." Before they parted, Sella did something unexpected. She knelt slightly, bringing herself down to a more equal height with the human captain, and extended both of her hands, palms open, a gesture Okoro did not recognize at first. "Among my people," Sella explained, seeing his confusion. "This gesture is reserved only for those we consider family, not merely allies or friends, but family, bound by something deeper than blood. I offer it to you now, Captain Okoro, and to every member of your crew, for as long as I live." Okoro, though unfamiliar with the custom, understood its meaning well enough. He reached out and placed his own hands against hers, mirroring the gesture as best he could. "Then I accept it, Captain Orun, on behalf of my crew and my people. And if you or your union ever need help again, you know exactly who to call." Months later, back on Earth, Captain Okoro stood before a formal gathering of Earth's Fleet Command, along with several official Torani Union representatives who had traveled a great distance, specifically for this meeting. Sella Orun stood among them, having personally requested to be present when the Union formally opened diplomatic relations with humanity, an event that many across both civilizations were calling historic. During the ceremony, one of the senior Union representatives, an older Yultharian official with deep gray stone-like skin, worn smooth by age, addressed the gathered crowd. "For many years," the official said, his translated voice carrying clearly across the hall, "our union believed itself to be a model of cooperation and unity among different species, and in many ways, we still are proud of what we have built together. But the events surrounding the Velmara's Hope taught us something important, something we had perhaps forgotten in our careful counsels and slow, cautious votes. We were taught this lesson not by one of our own peoples, but by a single human warship and its captain, who traveled 300 light-years into unclaimed, dangerous space, without waiting for permission, without calculating cost against benefit, simply because 212 strangers needed help." The official turned to look directly at Okoro, standing quietly among the human representatives. "Captain Okoro, you and your crew embodied something that day, which many species, including my own, sometimes struggle to embody ourselves. The simple, immediate willingness to help another in need, without hesitation, without condition. On behalf of the Torani Union, and every family reunited because of your actions, I extend our deepest gratitude and our hope that this is only the beginning of a long and meaningful friendship between our peoples." The room erupted in applause, humans and union representatives alike standing together in shared respect. Okoro, never entirely comfortable with public recognition, simply nodded and offered a brief, humble response. "We didn't do anything special," he said. "We just did what needed to be done, the same as anyone would have, given the chance. I'm just glad we got there in time." Later that evening, after the formal ceremonies had ended, Sella found Okoro standing alone on a balcony overlooking the lights of Earth's capital city, stars faintly visible above the glow of the city lights. "You still insist it was nothing special," she said, coming to stand beside him. Okoro smiled faintly. Isn't it supposed to be normal? Helping people who need it? Perhaps it should be, Sella said, looking up at the stars, thinking of the vast, empty distances between worlds, and how easily 212 lives could have been lost forever in that emptiness, had one ship, one captain, one crew, not chosen to answer a call for help without a single moment of hesitation. But in a galaxy as large and as complicated as ours, Captain Okoro, I have learned that such willingness is rare and precious wherever it is found. Earth is fortunate to have people like you and your crew among its stars, and now, so is the rest of the galaxy. Okoro said nothing more, simply looking up at the same stars, thinking of the long journey through the empty reach, the desperate distress call, the battle against the raiders, and the relief on so many faces when they finally reached safety. It had been a hard journey, filled with risk and uncertainty from beginning to end. But as he stood there now beside a friend his people had not known a year before, under stars that stretched endlessly in every direction, he knew, without any doubt at all, that it had been worth every moment. Because that was simply what humans did. When someone called for help, humanity answered, without hesitation and without regret.